Good morning on this Saturday, the 15th of September of the year 2012. I am waiting for experiencing my coffee kicking in, and have decided in the whole process of this inspiring jolt of caffeine to read one of my short stories from my book of short stories, Swords and Surrealities. I've decided not to read the first one, but there's a particular one that I would like to read that has to do with, well, maybe I shouldn't tell you and just jump right into it. It's on page 100, and I'm turning to the page now. The title of the story is Maskless. Let me just have a little bit more coffee. Coffee is good. I like it black. Here we go. There was no point of reference except for the campfire. Our world was relative to the campfire. So at night, when our daily chores and tasks were done, we let ourselves forget about our mortal masks and relaxed in a circle around the fire. Behind our heads' eyes in utter darkness were the tangled woods, and who knows what sorts of nocturnal creatures. The ground below felt solid, firm, unshakable. Above us flew the zodiac, but we let our thoughts run out of our heads and feed the fire. The elders let this fire spirit, which we had made, enter into them, and our minds, empty, were ready to be filled with their tales. Great-grand-elder and great-grand-eldress enjoyed debate between one another. Most often one would start a sentence and the other would finish it for the other, but not always the way the other wanted. Tonight they giggled and pinched one another as they squabbled over who was oldest and therefore wisest. "I remember when the river froze," exclaimed great-grand-elder enthusiastically. "I was around to see it freeze twice," retorted great-grand-eldress, "and the first time things weren't so pretty as the second." "What do you mean?" cried great-grand-elder. "The killing ones came at the last river freezing." Great-grand-eldress replied, "Oh, but they also came at the first river freezing. They killed many of us and we ran away. We came back and found corpses and our stored food stolen." "How did we survive?" wondered great-grand-elder, astounded. Great-grand-eldress whispered, "The Great Spirit gave us special permission to eat the flesh of those fallen." There was a period of silence. At length, great-grand-elder spoke. "Now I know what my mother meant when she told me my first bite of solid food was manly." Great-grand-eldress lifted the mood and, chuckling, offered, "You are almost as old as I." "I remember the last river freezing very well," stated great-grand-elder. "It was very violent, but not so bad. We kept our food. None of us died. We had made weapons like the killing ones. Not only did our hunters wield them, but everyone." "You were the great warrior star," exclaimed great-grand-eldress. "You treated the killing ones like deer, hunted them down." "A fine feast we had." "Sing," urged great-grand-eldress. "Sing the song of our people, which you sang as you dodged the killing one's arrows." Great-grand-elder's face went white. His eyes rolled up into his head. Out of his mouth there hummed and chanted a long and soothing, alliterating melody of rhythm and rhyme that wooed all of us to a blissful, healthful sleep. In our sleeping yet listening minds, our entire history unfolded in cyclic time that flowed around and into itself to metamorphose into tradition. In this tradition, persons and events are arranged in a mythology and cosmology which simultaneously mirrors one's inner self. It is from out of this mythscape that one's mask comes. One's mask is one's stability, one's tool for living. One does not even take it off to make love, only when sleeping or when dead. I woke up suddenly. I heard a shrill scream and quickly put my mask on. Then I stood up and opened my eyes. What I saw permanently shattered my mask. It was morning, but the sky over our forest glade was blocked out by a circular disk hovering in the air. It had many lights of many colors and designs. Its center was open, and a blinding white light poured out and reached the ground like a perfectly straight and branchless tree trunk. Silver men with red glowing eyes were floating up and down this lightway. They were knocking out us clan people with wands that shot turquoise rays. They were taking us up to the disk, one by one. Some brave youths had taken up their bows and were shooting at these silver men, but the arrows bounced off them. All this I saw in a couple seconds' time. Then I saw glowing red eyes and a shiny silver head behind a big silver fist that hit me right between the eyes. My mask shattered to the ground. When I awoke, I was on my side, hog-tied and gagged inside of a bright white cube. The ceiling glowed, buzzed, and flickered with a light that hurt my eyes. The whole clan, hog-tied and gagged just like me, was in this cube. Their masks were heaped in a pile in the corner. Suddenly, a rectangular patch of the cube's wall slid open with a hissing swoosh, and 3 of the silver men marched in and stood over us. First and foremost, there was a silver man wearing a long white gown, as white as the room, who wielded a long, thin needle. He was flanked by the other 2. They were silver, of course, but wore long black leather jackets which were belted around the waists. On either side of each belt was a wand. Gradually, all cries of panic and despair and movement to get loose and away disappeared as the white-gowned man came and poked each one of us one by one. But for some reason, I had not been poked. I made no sound or motion, acting like I had already been poked, and hoped they would not remember that they skipped over me. The 3 left the cube, and silver men without dress, like those at the forest glade, came and swept the masks away. Then the rectangular opening slid shut with a hissing swoosh. Suddenly, there came a terrible, deafening, grinding sound from all around, and the floor of the cube began to tilt downwards. The unconscious or dead lumps of my clan were all sliding towards a dark, gaping void. They fell out, but I managed to use my palms behind me like little scrambling feet and walk up more distance than I was sliding down. When the floor was open the widest, I saw the bodies falling into piles of millions upon millions of other bodies. Far below, lit by the stars, from horizon to horizon. Then the grinding sound stopped, turning into a high-pitched screech, and the floor closed back up. I lay shivering in a pool of my own urine and tears for what may have been an eternity. Suddenly, there were loud explosions sounding from all sides, from outside of the cube. The cube quaked. Then there appeared on one of the walls a round patch glowing ever more molten red, and I backed up as far away as I could from it in the corner. Deadly hot rivulets of molten metal were streaming from the circle towards me. I tried to avoid them and pushed myself farther back and tighter into the corner, but some reached me. Incredibly, the hot fluid touched only the knot in the cord that held my hands and feet, and I suddenly found myself free to move. The rivulets were therefore no longer difficult to avoid. The circle was to my left, and the side of the cube opposite me was where there had been the rectangular opening, and the rectangular opening swooshed open with a hiss now, and many dressless silver men charged in and, standing in a row, aimed their wands at the melting away circle of wall. The circle dripped like sizzling hot blood upon knee-high glossy black spiders that swarmed through. The silver men shot not turquoise rays, but sun-bright yellow beams out to their wands. There were too many spiders for the silver men to shoot down. They swarmed all over the silver men and continued beyond the rectangular opening. I picked up a wand of one of the fallen, a silver man, this time one of the ones in black, came into the cube through the rectangular opening. "Naga niga jug," he said to me, somehow tenderly. But I waved the wand in his direction, and not a yellow nor a turquoise, but a bright red beam came out, hit him, and he vanished into a puff of smoke. From the hot, dripping circle in the wall behind me came more spiders, and I flew through the rectangular opening. It was unbelievable how fast the spiders were. I was running down a narrow, dim corridor at a terrific speed for an entire hour or so, and slowly the spiders are catching up to me. Great-Grand Elder's Song of Her People came to me, and I chanted it aloud. Every so often, as I ran, I would find a silver man in my way, like Great-Grand Elder had done with the Killing One's arrows. I would dodge the beam. Then I would wave the wand at him, and a red beam would come out, and he would disappear into smoke. I ran through each cloud of smoke and continued. My heart was pounding so hard, and my lungs were pumping so furiously, I thought I was going to die. When I came to the end of the corridor, I could no longer sing the song. My mind was blank. But I did not stop running. I waved the wand, and a bright red light turned the wall to smoke, which I jumped through. I fell down, down, and down. Behind and above me in the night sky was the disk, with a triangle connected to it. The two vehicles continued up, and I continued down and down to the trees. I grabbed hold of a tree limb, but it broke from the fierceness of my fall. Another limb came. I grabbed onto that. It broke too, but I could tell my fall was slowing down because of these limbs. After several more limbs, I came to the tree's trunk and hugged it as I slid down, slower and slower, until I was no longer falling. I climbed down the rest of the tree and collapsed into nothingness. So I sit here now before you, my second clan, around this fire on this fine night. You ask me why I do not wear a mask, and now you know. The mask is a sense of I, and that has been shadowed for me. It is said that shamans wear no masks, for they have overcome the I. I have no I. I am an inadvertent shaman. Horror has enlightened me. A beautiful maiden, with breasts as bountiful and voluptuous as the goddess of love and spring herself, sits near the maskless one. Indeed, the mask she wears is that of this very goddess. Her voice is sweet yet profound. You are not maskless. That is, you are not a shaman. You are your own mask. That is, you are a hero star. You are an incarnation of an aspect of the mythscape, a new aspect. Surely a person from each generation will carve his mask in a semblance of your countenance. Thus you are an immortal one, a god. I want to have children from you. End.